5 terrifying horror stories that will keep you up all night.
1. The abandoned subway. My fascination with urban exploration had led me to many forgotten and eerie places, but none as unsettling as the abandoned subway system beneath our city. Rumors had always circulated about this place, an underground labyrinth of dark tunnels, hidden chambers, and forgotten tracks. It was said to be a place where the past lingered, where echoes of long-gone commuters still whispered through the cold, damp air. On a chilling autumn evening, I gathered with a group of fellow explorers, each of us armed with flashlights and cameras, ready to descend into the abyss. The entrance to the abandoned subway was concealed in the depths of an old, dilapidated building. The scent of dampness and decay greeted us as we made our way down the graffiti-covered staircase. The tunnels stretched out before us like a subterranean maze, their walls dripping with moisture and the air heavy with the scent of mildew. Our footsteps echoed ominously as we ventured deeper into the abyss. The oppressive darkness clung to us like a shroud, and our flashlights struggled to pierce the obscurity. As we ventured further, we came across strange and unsettling sights: abandoned train cars covered in layers of grime, broken tracks leading to nowhere, and faded advertisements from a bygone era. It was as though time had forgotten this place, leaving it to decay in silence. But our sense of adventure soon gave way to unease. We realized that we had been walking for hours, our paths twisting and turning in a disorienting manner. It was as though the tunnels themselves were shifting, rearranging to confuse and ensnare us. Panic began to take hold as we attempted to retrace our steps, only to find ourselves back where we had started. The sense of being watched became palpable, and our whispers of unease filled the tunnels like a sinister choir. It was then that we heard it. The distant sound of footsteps, echoing through the darkness. We shone our flashlights in the direction of the noise, but there was no one to be seen. The footsteps grew closer, each one reverberating through the tunnels like a chilling heartbeat. We huddled together, our flashlights trembling in our hands as the footsteps drew nearer. Panic threatened to overwhelm us as we realized that we were not alone in the abandoned subway. Something, or someone, was stalking us in the darkness. And then, emerging from the shadows, we saw it. A figure, gaunt and haggard, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. It moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, as though it were not quite of this world. We fled, our hearts pounding, but the tunnels seemed to twist and turn with a malevolent intent, trapping us in their grip. The figure pursued us relentlessly, its whispers filling our minds with madness. It was as though the very darkness of the subway had come to life, a malevolent force that sought to consume us. Hours turned into days as we wandered the endless tunnels, our senses dulled by fear and exhaustion. The figure continued to haunt our every step, its presence a relentless torment. We had become prisoners of the abandoned subway, trapped in a never-ending nightmare from which there was no escape. The tunnels had become a nightmarish labyrinth, and the figure that pursued us was a malevolent specter that refused to let us go. As I write this, I can still hear the echoes of our desperate screams, trapped forever in the dark, forgotten depths of the abandoned subway. I can only hope that someone will stumble upon our story, a warning to those who dare to venture into the darkness, and that they will avoid the terrifying fate that befell us. 2. The Hitchhikers Request. It was a moonless night, and I was driving down a desolate stretch of highway, the darkness broken only by the dim glow of my headlights. Rain tapped against the windshield, adding an eerie backdrop to the solitude of the road. I had always been a cautious driver, but that night, something compelled me to pick up a hitchhiker. He appeared out of nowhere, a shadowy figure standing on the side of the road, drenched by the pouring rain. His silhouette was vague, and I couldn't make out any distinguishing features, but his outstretched thumb was a silent plea for help. I hesitated for a moment, my instincts telling me to keep driving, to ignore the stranger in the night. But against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" I asked, my voice tinged with unease. The hitchhiker nodded, a gesture barely visible in the darkness. Without a word, he climbed into the backseat of my car, his presence filling the vehicle with a palpable sense of dread. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "To the cemetery," he replied, his voice slow and filled with a haunting quality. I didn't question him further, my unease growing with every passing mile. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour, and the sound of it against the car roof seemed to drown out all other noise. As we approached the cemetery, the hitchhiker instructed me to pull over by the side of the road. I did as he asked, and he stepped out of the car, disappearing into the darkness. I watched him for a moment, his silhouette growing fainter in the distance before I began to drive away. But as I turned my gaze back to the road, I froze in terror. The hitchhiker was no longer in the rearview mirror. Instead, he was sitting in the backseat of my car once more, his form wreathed in an eerie, ghostly glow. His face was pale and gaunt, his eyes empty and hollow. I screamed and slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. I turned to face the hitchhiker, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. He turned to me, a wicked smile spreading across his face. "I am the keeper of the lost souls," he whispered, his voice a chilling refrain. "And now I have found you." In a desperate panic, I flung open the car door and stumbled out onto the rain-soaked road. But as I looked back at the car, I saw the hitchhiker still sitting in the backseat, his spectral form unaffected by the downpour. I fled into the darkness, my footsteps echoing through the empty night. The rain soaked through my clothes, and the road stretched out endlessly before me. But no matter how far I ran, I couldn't escape the feeling that the hitchhiker was still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim my soul. As I write this, I can still hear his haunting words, a chilling reminder of that fateful night. The Hitchhikers' Request had led me to a cemetery of lost souls, and I fear that I may never escape the chilling revelation of what lies beyond the darkness of the highway. 3. The deadly hike. The wilderness had always called to me, its untamed beauty and rugged terrain a siren song that lured me away from the constraints of civilization. So when the opportunity arose for a week-long hiking trip with a group of adventurous friends, I couldn't resist. Little did I know that our journey into the wild would become a harrowing battle for survival, as we encountered something malevolent lurking in the unforgiving terrain. We began our hike with high spirits, the backpacks heavy with supplies, and our hearts filled with excitement. The trail was rugged but picturesque, winding through dense forest, alongside crystal-clear streams and up steep, rocky inclines. It felt like we were living in a postcard, a world of pristine wilderness untouched by human hands. As the days passed, however, our carefree adventure took a dark turn. We had veered off the main trail, enticed by the allure of uncharted territory and the promise of hidden wonders. It wasn't long before we realized that we were hopelessly lost, our compasses and maps useless in this unfamiliar landscape. Panic began to creep in as we struggled to find our way back to civilization. Our food supplies dwindled, and the once clear skies turned gray with foreboding clouds. The wilderness, once so inviting, now seemed like an impenetrable labyrinth. It was on the fourth night that we first sensed something amiss. As we huddled around a flickering campfire, the forest around us fell silent. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just an eerie stillness that sent shivers down our spines. We dismissed it as an overactive imagination, attributing it to the isolation of our predicament. But as the days wore on, that sense of unease grew. We began to hear faint, disembodied whispers in the night, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was as though the very forest itself was whispering secrets we were never meant to know. One morning, we awoke to find our campsite in disarray. Our supplies scattered, our tent shredded, and our backpacks torn open. It was as though an unseen force had descended upon us in the darkness, a malevolent presence that reveled in chaos. Fear gnawed at us as we realized that we were not alone in the wilderness. Something was stalking us, a shadowy figure that moved silently through the trees just beyond the edge of our vision. We caught fleeting glimpses of it, glowing eyes in the darkness, a fleeting silhouette, but it always disappeared before we could react. Desperation set in as we realized that our situation had become dire. We couldn't find our way back, and the malevolent presence seemed to be closing in on us. Every night, we huddled together, our hearts pounding, as the whispers grew louder and the sense of dread deepened. On the seventh day of our ordeal, we encountered it face to face. As we stumbled through a dense thicket, a figure emerged from the shadows, a hulking, grotesque creature with elongated limbs and twisted features. Its eyes burnt with a malevolent light, and its mouth twisted into a sinister grin. We ran, our terror-fueled adrenaline carrying us through the wilderness, but the creature pursued us relentlessly. It moved with an unnatural speed, always just behind us, a malevolent presence that refused to let us escape. As the days turned into weeks, our group grew smaller, our numbers dwindling as one by one my friends fell victim to the relentless pursuit of the malevolent entity. I knew that I was running out of time, that I was the last one standing in this nightmarish game of survival. And then, one fateful night, as I huddled alone in the darkness, the creature found me. It cornered me in a narrow ravine, its eyes filled with malice, and its twisted grin sending chills down my spine. But I refused to be its victim. With every ounce of strength I had left, I fought back, using a makeshift weapon to fend off the creature. It howled in pain, its grotesque form fading into the shadows as it retreated. I knew I couldn't defeat it, but I had bought myself some precious time. I used that time to make a desperate escape, running blindly through the wilderness until I stumbled upon a search and rescue team that had been dispatched to find us. As I was airlifted to safety, I couldn't help but wonder what malevolent force had stalked us in the wilderness. Had we stumbled into a world of ancient legends and forgotten terrors, or had the wilderness itself become a sentient, malevolent entity seeking to reclaim those who dared to enter its domain? I may never know the answer, but the horrors I witnessed in those endless days and nights in the wild will haunt me forever. The wilderness, once a place of beauty and wonder, had become a nightmare realm of dread and terror. A place where something malevolent lurked in the shadows, waiting for the next group of unsuspecting hikers to lose their way. 4. The sealed room. Moving into a new house was supposed to be a fresh start for our family. The old Victorian home, nestled at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, seemed perfect, but it didn't take long for us to realize that something was terribly wrong with one of the rooms. We discovered it by accident, my wife and I, as we explored the nooks and crannies of our new home. In the basement, behind a wall of old crates and forgotten belongings, we stumbled upon a locked door. It was unlike any other door in a household and ornate, with a heavy padlock sealing it shut. We were intrigued, our curiosity piqued by the mystery of what lay behind the door. It took some time and effort, but we managed to find the key hidden among the dusty relics of the basement. As we turned the key in the lock and push the door open, a musty, stale air filled our nostrils. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the dim basement bulb spilling through the open doorway. Stepping cautiously inside, we felt a sense of unease settle over us. The room was small and cramped, with peeling wallpaper and faded, old-fashioned furniture. It looked like a relic from another era, untouched by time. But what caught our attention and sent shivers down our spines were the walls. The walls were covered in intricate drawings, a grotesque mosaic of twisted figures and nightmarish scenes. They were drawn in what appeared to be charcoal, the lines dark and bold, as though they had been etched by an unsteady hand. As we examined the drawings, it became clear that they told a horrifying story. Scenes of violence, torture, and suffering played out before our eyes, a macabre narrative that seemed to seep into the very air of the room. We couldn't tear our eyes away from the horrifying images, our minds recoiling from the darkness that seemed to have festered in that sealed room for decades. It was as though the room itself was a portal to a nightmare world, a place where the unspeakable horrors of the past had been trapped, waiting to be discovered. That night, we did our best to put the room out of our minds, to chalk it up to the eccentricities of the previous owners. But as the days turned into weeks, we couldn't escape the feeling that something malevolent had been awakened by our discovery. Strange things began to happen in the house. Objects moved of their own accord. Shadows danced in the corners of our vision, and whispers echoed through the halls at night. Our once happy family began to fray at the edges, as though the very walls of the house were closing in on us. As we delved deeper into the history of the house, we uncovered a horrifying truth. The room had been sealed for a reason. It had once belonged to a deranged artist, a man who had committed unspeakable atrocities within its walls. We knew we had to do something to rid our home of the malevolent presence that had been unleashed. With the help of a local priest, we performed a ritual to cleanse the room, to seal away the darkness that had festered within. But as we sealed the room once more, I couldn't escape the feeling that the horrors we had witnessed would never truly be gone. They would linger in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting family to move in, and the cycle of terror would continue. As we closed the door to the sealed room for the final time, I couldn't help but wonder if we had truly escaped the horrors of the past or if they would forever haunt our new home. A malevolent presence lurking just beyond the surface, waiting to be awakened once more. 5. The Ritual School. Teaching had always been my passion, so when I accepted a substitute teaching position at an inner-city school, I was eager to make a positive impact on the lives of the students. Little did I know that my experience would take a dark and sinister turn as I uncovered a dangerous and occult-like student clique. On my first day at St. Agnes High, I was struck by the dilapidated state of the building, its cracked walls and flickering fluorescent lights casting a gloomy pallor over the hallways. The students, too, seemed different. Apathetic, their eyes hollow, as though they had seen things no child should witness. My first class was filled with sullen faces and the atmosphere was tense. As I began my lesson, I noticed a group of students sitting together at the back of the room, their hushed whispers and furtive glances setting them apart from the rest. They called themselves the Chosen, a name that sent a chill down my spine. They were a tight-knit group, secretive and aloof, and it was clear that they held a strange power over the other students. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with the Chosen. They seemed to have an uncanny ability to predict events before they happened. A fire drill, a surprise quiz, even a teacher's sudden illness. It was as though they were connected to forces beyond the natural world. One day, as I was preparing my lesson plan, I overheard the Chosen whispering in the hallway. Their voices were low, their words a jumble of strange incantations and cryptic references to a hidden power. I couldn't make out the details, but I knew that something malevolent was at play. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to investigate the Chosen, delving into their backgrounds and trying to unravel the mystery that surrounded them. What I discovered was a horrifying truth. They were involved in a dark and occult-like ritual, one that had been passed down through generations of students at the school. The ritual was designed to tap into a sinister power, one that granted the Chosen unnatural abilities and control over the school's events. It involved a series of dark and disturbing acts, from animal sacrifice to blood oaths, all performed in secret and hidden from the prying eyes of the teachers and staff. As I delved deeper into the secrets of the Chosen, I realized that they were not just a group of misguided students, but a malevolent force that had infiltrated the school, their influence spreading like a cancer through the student body. I knew that I had to put an end to their reign of terror, to break the hold they had over the school. But as I gathered evidence and prepared to expose the Chosen to the authorities, I became the target of their malevolence. Strange occurrences began to happen in my life. My car's brakes failed, my house was vandalized, and I received anonymous threats. It was clear that the Chosen would stop at nothing to protect their dark secrets. In a final, desperate act, I confronted the Chosen, exposing their dark rituals and malevolent intentions to the school. But as I spoke, I could feel their power closing in around me, their eyes burning with a malevolent light. They retaliated with a vengeance, their actions growing more and more sinister. The other students, once under their control, turned against them, and the Chosen's grip on the school began to weaken. But the battle was far from over. The Chosen had tasted power, and they would not be defeated so easily. As I write this, I can still feel their presence lurking in the shadows, a malevolent force that will stop at nothing to reclaim their hold on the school and continue their dark and disturbing rituals. The sinister school remains a place of fear and darkness, a place where the forces of the occult lurk just beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed once more. And I fear that the Chosen will stop at nothing to ensure that their secrets remain hidden, no matter the cost. Which story caught your attention the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my website in the description below to see what I'm writing. And just below there are some suggestions related to what we talked about today. Peace.